the most important point is that creating and using static data is very simple, but it does add a weakness to your design and to your application. You know, if you're constantly writing some code and that code is labeled by everyone around you as not thread safe, it's something that you probably don't want. By the way, a very possible solution in many applications as an alternative to this innocent looking sequence number, which may fail, but you always want the unique number. Well, it's possible that instead of doing this, you actually make a connection to the database, and databases are always designed, relational databases for that matter, are designed to generate unique numbers, to identify unique records very easily. So typically, anytime you want, in business application, safely create unique numbers, most people will rely on the function of the database and not program their own little invention of the sequence number generator. However, it's possible. But if you do, of course, and if you do lock places in your code, it means that it's a bottleneck. Why is it a bottleneck? Because now all parallel threads of execution must wait in turn to execute this line of code. No one, if we do lock it and program it properly, if we lock this owner ID sequence, I'm not showing it right now, I will show it in our Java class later on, right? But if we did something to lock and therefore safely increment this number, it creates a bottleneck. Because if this happens way too often, there could be other consequences, and it creates a bottleneck that every single parallel thread of execution will have to wait, right, for the others to finish, and only then it can get its turn to do this. So therefore, there will be a stop. The parallel execution basically will be controlled by this line of code if it's properly logged by our application. So typically, the bottom line is, this is not your friend. Static data attributes in any programming language, not just in Java. It's just multi-threading rules are the same for all environments. If you write like your PHP script or anything, it's all, if you're having access to multi-threaded environment and you think that what you do requires shared resources, like anything that is named static in C or C++ or in Java or anywhere else in .NET, Visual Basic, C#, it comes with this evil part that it instantly, if used recklessly, it will instantly make your code not thread safe, and that's a bad thing. So typically, you should try to avoid using static as much as you can. And if you there are places where you have to do it, and it's by design, and there are, we will explore all of this multi-threading programming techniques and design patterns and ideas and restrictions and dangers in the future, right? But it is a separate class of challenges that we have to face. For now, I'm just saying that it looks very innocent, and it seems like its use is very simple, which it is. However, it may not be what you want. So just to let you know, right? So that you're aware of it. So and we started with the slide talking about the visibility. So we said, okay, you can have local attributes, object attributes unique for each object. Those are of course thread safe, because look on our picture right here. If a thread of execution creates this particular object right here, right? If it creates this particular object, thread of execution, it totally owns it, and it's completely true. It doesn't matter whether this object is cached or not cached. Only this thread has access to it. right? So anything inside this particular box, like any of these object attributes which we were declaring as non-static attributes over here, this last name and license ID object attributes, those are perfectly safe. And this is the choice, this is what you want. Okay, let's move on. Let's see what else we can talk about. So local attributes, invisible outside of scope of an operation or method in Java, and that's about it. Also very safe, and I think you should be making this decision to say, well, if for some reason I use this local method level attribute named owner ID, and it's an integer inside this constructor, which is of course just another type of method that you can have in your class. If this is the only place where I use it, don't make this your data attribute, at object level. So in other words, don't do this. Don't do this. If you create data attribute at inside your class, right? And the only purpose of this owner ID is to be used once inside this driver license constructor, you really don't, listen, you're actually taking space in memory, because remember, owner ID now becomes part of each of these boxes. So it occupies unnecessary memory and used once. So this really should be not made an object attribute. Instead, it should be just a normal local variable. So be clear about it. Anything, the general rule is, the closer the scope, the less visibility your things have, the better for you. It's more efficient, it's safer, and it's better design. On the other hand, if I realize that if I realize that I do want to use this data attribute a lot, and somehow I reproduce the same thing over and over and over again in different places, and I may have to retain the value between different calls, of course, this should be declared as object attribute and become part of your object. After all, it's efficiency, or the space of allocated object versus the natural ways to program it. So you probably should follow standard design guideline that if this is truly part of the state of your object, then of course it needs to be here part of the object attribute. But if it's just used occasionally by methods and just its use is temporary, then of course it should not be part of your class at the level of the object attribute. It should be just a normal local variable. Okay, what else? By the way, if I roll back, is everybody comfortable with these three, with the local attributes, object level attributes, and static attributes, which have the class visibility, right? So these are the three choices that we have. There really aren't that many other choices. You create a local variable inside your method, or you create a separate class and say, okay, this class will have this whole bunch of object attributes that each object will have unique copy of it, or you have attributes shared between classes. In C++ and in C, of course, there is yet another class which is global scope, right? It's simply any data intentionally is put outside of any class, and just it sits available to the entire program, right? Because C++ and C support procedural programming, that's yet another choice that exists in those programming languages. In Java, everything that you do has to be inside of a certain class. Therefore, those are the only three choices for a Java programmer. Okay, so we discussed the method attributes and their nature. Let's save this segment as well.